Will you work to improve support to teachers, including benefits to retired teachers?
100%. That's what really truly got me interested in running for this position. I mean, there are a million things that we need to look at and take care of. But I think public education is one of the top priorities that we need to work on because it affects our property taxes, it affects our children, it affects lots of parts of our lives, especially up here in Blanco and more importantly in Johnson City. I mean, their school district is in dire straits up there. They need some more financing. They need some more teachers up there. They have people doing 2 or 3 jobs that used to belong to 2 or 3 people, and now there's 1 person are doing these jobs. So absolutely, retired teachers are very important to me. I mean, we promised them. First of all, we got them in to teach school. We promised them we'd take care of them. We paid them beans the whole time they taught, and now that they retire, then we start taking money away from them. We don't pay for their health insurance like we should.
Erin? You remember it?
Yeah, I remember very clearly the first day that I was out block walking and knocked on the door of a retired educator who told me she had decided to forgo health insurance for the next couple of years. She was a few years before, too young for Medicare, already retired, and she was faced with the choice of staying in her house and paying her mortgage or continuing to have health insurance through the teacher retirement system. That's wrong. Full stop, that's wrong. Educators make at least 17% less working in education than they would make in the private sector. And if part of the agreement we made with our educators is that we would take care of them once they retired. Texas has broken that promise, and we have to renew it. So the normal attrition rate off of the teacher retirement healthcare is about 1,500 to 1,800 people a year. 35,000 people left the teacher retirement system last year. And they can't go back on right now. Once you're left, you've gone. So we need to fund it, and we need to give those teachers a grace period to come back on.
Thank you. For this next question, we'll begin with Erin. What will you do to increase state funding for public education so that we can have relief on our property taxes?
I so love the way that question's phrased because property taxes and public education funding are so intricately linked. State funding has been consistently going down, honestly, the entire time I've been alive. I'm 33 years old. When I was a kid, the state paid for 60% of the cost of my education. Now it's 38%. And a big reason is because the way the formulas were written is the higher property taxes go, or property values go, the less the state's supposed to chip in. We have to fundamentally fix that. And honestly, the fact that it hasn't been fixed already is because accountability is low, and legislators have just been able to blame school board trustees, city council members, county commissioners for high taxes, when the real cause was them not funding our public schools. So a permanent solution that I think is one important facet is an amendment to the Constitution of the state of Texas to require the state to pay for at least 50% of the cost of our neighborhood schools.
Ken?
All right, I agree with Erin. We definitely need to fix this situation. Being a school board member for 10 years, I have felt the effects of what the funding is doing. I think there are ways we can fix it by doing some formula adjustments. Definitely have to do some formula adjustments, especially up here in Johnson City where we have to work on our Robin Hood, Chapter 41 school funding. I think that's just wrong the way they do that. So I feel like we need to get up and we really need to stop so much of the unfunded mandates. I think we're way over-regulating our schools. I think we need to put some priorities into the appropriations. When we get ready to talk about schools, we really start to have to take that serious this year. It's just been kicked down the road, exactly like Erin says, and just blamed on school districts. I think school districts do need to look at what they're doing very well, but I think that we can do a lot better as a state. So
this just continues with this topic. Ken, under the Robin Hood plan, would you support a separate state fund for a local education tax that is returned to the state? Our taxes now go in the general fund.
Yes, absolutely, I would definitely support that. But I think before we do that, there's some good common sense things we can do. I think the funding formula for Chapter 41 is skewed. I think that can be fixed. I think there can be a much more level playing field, and so that's where I will start working. But I would absolutely support that money going into its own fund and not into the general fund.
Erin?
Yes, absolutely. This is a huge truth in taxation issue. We have all been paying our property taxes. If everyone here is from Blanco, you all live in a district that's paying recapture money back to the state. And you've been paying that money believing it's being either sent to your local school district or other school districts in need. But that money goes into the general fund of the state of Texas, and only about 80% of it has historically been reallocated back to other school districts. Instead, the state is using it as its trust fund, its slush fund, and is balancing the budget on the backs of our children. That's not right. And we should not be paying money, line item, for education and have the state take it and move it elsewhere. Now that said, when we rework the formulas for funding our schools, and when the state starts chipping in its fair share, the amount of money every single district in the state is paying towards recapture should drop dramatically. In real dollars, we in Texas are spending less money every year on our kids than we were a decade ago. And that's because the state isn't pulling its weight.
Erin, the next question begins with you. What is your position on clean air and clean water regulations?
Whew, that's a very focused and tight question. I'm a lifelong environmentalist. I grew up here in Texas exploring the hill country with my father and love it deeply. And I really hope that it's a place that I will get to enjoy with and introduce my daughter to. Texas as a state has never prioritized taking care of our environment very highly. We have the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, which mostly acts as a rubber stamp agency. So we have some options to try to give them more tools to enforce clean air and clean waters. But honestly, it's going to be a long project for us to change the culture of that agency so that they're prioritizing clean air and clean water over business. In the short term, where I think we have some more opportunity is with giving our groundwater conservation districts more tools. Water conservation in Texas is going to become more and more critical, and I am out of time, but I hope we have a groundwater question in there tonight.
Ken?
Yes, I agree. We definitely need to look at TCEQ and figure out what we can do better, how we can manage that better, how we can give them more authority and more power over our groundwater, water, our air. So yes, I agree that it's definitely something we need to work much harder towards, especially now with people talking about that and that movement to other rivers.
This next one is a little more focused, and we'll start with Ken. There have been applications of quarries and batch plants moving into our hill country to preserve the beauty of the hill country, including clean water and clear skies. What can we do? What can you do to empower local citizens to preserve our property rights and keep the hill country clean and clear?
Well, that's very difficult without taking property rights away from people and still giving property rights to people. I think it's something that the local community definitely has to have some say-so in. I think that we need to go to the local communities and see where they stand on that. But Texas is a huge property rights state, so it's going to be a difficult position to be in. So it's something we're all going to have to work really hard at. But I think local people definitely need to have a say-so in what we're doing in their neighborhood and in their community, and not just with rock quarries and mines, but wedding venues and wineries and all of that. How do we manage all of that? So.
Erin?
Water crosses over property lines. Air crosses over property lines. These are shared resources. And yes, Texas is a huge property rights state, and giving our counties any more local authority to manage industrial development is going to be a fight. I'm not going to lie. It'll be a fight. But I think it's a fight we have to pick. Because we see more and more of these developments coming in, these industrial uses, disturbing the quality of life of people who have been there, sometimes for decades, reducing the air quality, reducing the water quality, and also tearing up our roads. So what I would like to see is for counties to have authority to approve land use with industrial development. That's the step we have to take. It's a big one in Texas. I'm not going to pretend it isn't. But that's the only solution, especially in areas that are growing as quickly as the hill country is. If we still want the hill country to be recognizable in our children's and their children's lifetimes, we're going to have to take action. And my hill country isn't for sale to the highest bidder.
This question goes to Erin first. How could the Texas redistricting process be changed to prevent partisan gerrymandering by either political party and ensure all Texas votes count equally?
Thank you to whoever stuck that question in. This is one of my favorite issues. The biggest solution is an independent redistricting commission, where instead of the legislators drawing the boundary lines for U.S. Congress and the state legislature, an independent commission is giving guidelines to keep communities of interest together, to try and draw competitive districts as appropriate, and to try and follow natural boundaries. And that is something that will make elections more fair for everyone. You know, here in House District 45, we have 7 major communities. 4 of those are split in half by gerrymandering for their U.S. congressional representation. The lines on the eastern side of Hays County are just a mess. People can't keep track of who their representative is from one year to the next because they've been traded back and forth so many times. I find that incredibly disappointing, and it discourages people from voting. So I will fight for an independent redistricting commission. I don't think the Texas state legislature should have that power because we've abused it.
Ken?
I totally disagree with that. I think that the elected officials are the ones who are responsible for this, and I think they need to be responsible for it. I think they need to be held accountable for what they're doing with it. But I think that the state legislature is responsible for drawing these lines, and I think we need to continue to do that.
Let's see, this one goes to Ken first. It is legal to sell firearms at yard sales in Texas. Are you okay with that? Yes, no, and why?
Well, right now I'm okay with it because it is the law. I think if we don't like that, we need to change the law. And personally, it seems a little difficult for me being an EMS guy and being around a lot of gun violence and stuff. I think we definitely need to work on our gun laws here in the state of Texas. So I think it's the law, and we have to uphold the law, and then we need to come to our citizens and see where they stand on what they want to have with that. So be a representative of that.
Our time, does it allow us to stop in the middle, Bonnie? Can you start over? Good. Erin?
I'm running for the legislature because I'd like to change the laws. And gun violence certainly is concerning, and at the beginning of this campaign, I would have said that Texas did not have the political will to address gun laws right now. And my perspective on that has totally changed because we have seen tremendous community activism reaching out begging us to do something and to do something better. You know, we know that most gun owners are responsible in how they handle their firearms, but most doesn't keep everyone safe. When my little brother was 2 years old, my mom took him along to a soccer party for my sister, and he toddled into the bedroom and he toddled out with a loaded handgun. And so I think one of the best things we can address in Texas to start with, to start to change.
In the hands of the TCEQ, what will you do as a representative to bring back local control? Maybe this is your GCD question.
Yeah, so as we talked about earlier, the problem with the TCEQ is they largely operate as a rubber stamp agency. Another issue is that it's really hard to find out that someone's seeking a TCEQ permit. You have to go out of your way to find out about new development that might be happening right in your own backyard. There is no publicly mandated local process. And I think that's incredibly important, that folks know what's about to happen in their neighborhood before it's a done deal, and have an opportunity to comment and perhaps change the direction of that particular development. So, and this comes back to giving counties more authority, especially here in the Hill Country, Hays and Blanco counties, where so much of the new development is happening outside of city limit signs. If you're outside city limits, the counties have so few tools, and we have to give them more. Until we give them more, we are for sale to the highest bidder. So I'll fight to change that.
Thank you.
Can you read the question one more time?
Oh, sure. Oh, I'm sorry, it's right here. Decision-making about water-related development has been taken out of local control and is solely in the hands of the TCEQ. What will you do as our representative to bring back local control?
I'll work with local water boards and make sure that we get authority where it needs to be, and I think local water boards need that authority to come in and help regulate the local area. They know more about it, they have representation from the neighborhoods, and I think they need the authority to come in and regulate how much water is being pulled out of the ground, or how much affluence being dumped in the rivers or ground use. So I would come and help authority with the local groundwater districts. So.
The next one follows closely. Ken, what will you do to help protect the aquifers in the Hill Country?
Like I say, I'd give more authority to the local groundwater districts and allow them to regulate how much water we would take out. And I would introduce some real science into it and try to figure out exactly how much water we can take out before we start affecting our neighbors' wells or drawing down too much. So I think, again, I'm not an expert at it, but I know that guys that are on the local water districts are the experts. And that's where I want to be a representative, is bring those people together with the communities and get some good authority and some good science behind it and see how it should work and how it should be protected.
Let's see.
I think I get a turn.
Just where we are, thank you. Erin's turn.
There are 4 groundwater conservation districts in House District 45. The one that is the western part of Hays County, the one that I live in personally, is the Hays Trinity Groundwater Conservation District. And it has about half the normal authority of a groundwater conservation district in Texas. Basically, they don't have the ability to charge certain types of fees to folks who are putting in new wells, and they also don't have the ability to request a tax to be voted on from their community. This means that they're cash poor and that they are afraid to tell someone coming in requesting a drilling permit no, because they don't have the funds to stand up to a legal challenge. The first thing I will do is introduce a bill to give the Hays Trinity Groundwater Conservation District its full authority under Texas groundwater law. I also will take on the rule of capture. Rule of capture means whoever has the biggest straw can suck up all the water. And we deserve better than that. Our water deserves better than that. We need to move towards more of a one water philosophy that represents, well, I'm out of time.
Erin, this one begins with you. Do you support local communities and their support for dark skies initiatives?
I do. We know how light pollution impacts our quality of living, our night skies, and the beauty of this area. It also has tremendous impacts on wildlife and their circadian rhythms. So I very much support dark skies practices. One of the things I know that many city councilors in this area have told me they would like is to have dark sky authority in their extraterritorial jurisdictions. Especially a city like Dripping Springs with an ETJ that stretches all the way to Buda and Austin and a couple other directions, almost to Wimberley. That's a huge amount of area with large amount of development that would probably never be annexed that could use those dark sky protections. And I think most of the communities in this area could use that. So that's a very easy way that we can help bolster those efforts. Just let the cities have that authority in their extraterritorial jurisdictions.
Ken?
Well, not only do I support it ideologically, my business is dark sky friendly. We were awarded that. Wimberley is a dark sky city, and on the school board, we voted to take our football lights down and put dark sky friendly football lights up at the football stadium and at the baseball fields. So I am a huge supporter of that in action. So it's very important to me.
Ken, this one begins with you. How can the Texas Legislature move further in fostering renewable energy expansion in our state?
I think we can look at tax incentives. I think that we can look at solar on people's homes and give them some rebates on that. I think we just have to allow people to do some exploration of that and do some tax incentives with it. So I don't know a lot about it, but that's where I'm at with that.
Erin?
Yeah. So in the late 90s, Texas established a renewable energy portfolio standard. And we did great. We met the number of kilowatts we wanted to within 4 or 5 years, 2003, I believe. And we haven't updated that renewable energy standard since. And so that has slowed some of the development and slowed the pressure on our electric co-ops and other electrical providers to continue to expand their renewable energy portfolios. I'd like to see us create a stair-step system where we continuously increase the renewable energy portfolio standards over time so that our providers work towards that goal. The other thing I'd like to see is create some standardization for how our electrical providers work with customers who've installed solar. Every single electrical provider gets to create their own rules. Luckily, I'm pretty sure everyone in this room lives in Pedernales Electric Co-op, and they're pretty good about it. But not everyone in the state is. And so we need to create some standards for net metering so that everyone in Texas has access to good deals on that.
Erin, please go first on this question. What would you do about climate change, whether or not people are the major contributor?
Well, let's just get this out of the way. We are a major contributor. I have a degree in natural resource conservation, and when I was studying, there was no if question with climate change. We had already moved on to the how are we going to deal with what's happening. And that's where we need to come with this question. The climate is going to change. We are past the point of no return for seeing some change. We can minimize it, but it's happening. So I, as we were talking about, support investing in renewable energy. That's a huge factor. But also, we need to be resilient and prepared for the changes that are coming anyway. Water conservation is a huge component of that. Texas, in many projections, is expected to get drier. So we have to prepare. The other thing we can do to make sure our ecosystems are resilient is set aside more land. We are losing open space in the hill country at a rapid pace. And what that does is it decreases the amount of habitat we have, our species diversity, which decreases the ability of our ecosystems to adapt to the change in temperatures.
Ken?
I agree. I think we need to take care of our environment and by having open space, I really like having open space. I think it really is renewable. Obviously, I'm digging a hole for myself here because I'm not very familiar with this. But there again, I would seek out experts who are good at this. I mean, climate change is a controversial issue. So there are two sides to that, and so we just have to see where we fall with that. So I guess I have a non-answer for that.
Well, you get to go first on this next.
Good.
Completely different subject.
All right.
Do you support building the wall for border security through Big Bend National Park? What could the state legislature do if they disagreed with the federal position?
Read it one more time and let me get it straight.
Do you support the building of the wall for border security? There are quotations here in this question, but we know they mean the one between
Yes.
Mexico and Texas.
Right, okay, yeah.
For Big Bend National Park. And what could the state legislature do if they disagree with the federal position?
Well, that's two questions.
It really is.
Yes. So I'll answer the first question. I agree we need some kind of wall, and it can be an electronic wall. I don't know that we need to build a huge fence, but I think that we need to know who's coming into our country. I mean, we have these laws that say don't come into our country unless you come in legally. So I think that we need to know who's coming into our country. So if we build an electronic wall, I think that would work out. We have the technology to do that. I want to preserve Big Bend State Park as much as anybody. I love Big Bend State Park. I love going out there. What was the second question?
What could the state
What could the state
legislature do
legislature
if they
do?
disagree? If the route is through Big Bend National Park?
Well, I think we've seen the state legislature disagree with federal stuff quite a bit, and they pretty much just do whatever they want to do. They've disagreed with what we've been doing so far and have spent a lot of our own money on securing the border. So we can see my time. Okay.
Erin?
No, I don't agree with building the wall. And I think we all know when that particular talking point came out that it meant a real physical wall from the Gulf of California to the Gulf of Mexico. Our border security already has the authority to build fences in limited areas at high crossing points. I've crossed through one of them myself. So this is an unnecessary thing. It would damage the ecology and the floodplains in the Rio Grande Valley in a way, so ecologically it will damage Texas more than any other state because our border is the river. It will violate the private property rights of thousands of people who own land along the border. And that's the main thing I think we could do as Texas if we were gonna try and fight this, is we can support those who are fighting the eminent domain claims here in Texas along the border. The federal government will have to condemn, again, thousands of properties to build this. And we can provide legal support for those landowners who are trying to fight against that.
Erin, you take this next one first. Texas ranks near the bottom of most public health indicators, and we have a very large number of folks without health insurance. How do Texans benefit from our not participating in expanded Medicaid?
They don't, not even a little bit. I think some legislators feel real good about digging their heels in the sand and being stubborn about it, but other than them, not a single Texan benefits. Expanding Medicaid, funds were made available for it under the Affordable Care Act back in 2010. And Texas chose to litigate the Affordable Care Act and were successful in pushing back the Medicaid expansion. They made the Medicaid expansion optional, and then Texas refused to take those funds. Long story short, if we took that money, we would bring in $6 billion of federal funds every year, and we would cover another 1.5 million Texans. Texas has the highest uninsured rate in the country, and this is why. Medicaid expansion would cover 10,000 people right here in House District 45. And when we talk about Medicaid, yeah, we're talking about folks who currently can't afford health care, but it drives up the cost for all of us. We have so many people who visit our providers and are unable to pay, and that drives up everyone's costs and causes rural providers to have to close their doors.
Ken?
And I agree, I'd love to see that $6 billion come into the state of Texas. But what I think we need to do is build a great, sustainable program with that money. So when that money dries up, the state's not left holding the bag of $6 billion of how are we going to take care of that money, and how are we going to continue to fund Medicaid in the state of Texas, and how do we continue to take care of these people. So that's where I would be fighting for, is not just to bring the money into the state of Texas, but how do we bring the money into the state of Texas? How do we make it sustainable, and how do we continue to do that when that money dries up and that leaves us holding the bag? How do we take care of that? I think that is one of the big questions that we need to figure out.
Take this one first, please, Ken. Will you vote to fund the shortfall in TRS care? And will you vote to increase the state's share of TRS care?
I will vote to fund the shortfall in TRS care. I mean, it goes right back to taking care of teachers. This is where I've been. This is what I've lived for the last 10 years, is working for teachers, supporting teachers, and absolutely, I would vote for that.
Erin?
Yes, as we've talked about previously, it's completely wrong that retired educators are having to choose between paying for health care and paying for their mortgage. And then when we look at teachers who are currently working, even though teacher pay has increased gradually in Texas, the amount of money taken out of their check every month for health care has also increased. So their take-home pay has gone down. In real dollars, their take-home pay has decreased, not adjusting for inflation. That's wrong. So if we want to continue to have great education for our children, we have to recruit high-quality teachers. And if I was 18 and looking at what to major in college right now and looking at the news, I'd go study nursing. I mean, that's the choice a lot of folks are going to make. If we want great education for our kids, we have to take care of our teachers. And I will absolutely vote yes to both expand the state contribution for TRS care and to fund the shortfall.
Erin, please answer this one first. Do you support the legalization of marijuana for medical or recreational use?
Let me guess who that question came from. We have a
exactly how I
representative.
asked it. They cut it up into a lot shorter, so.
We have a representative from Normal in the audience. I do support the legalization of marijuana, and for a few different reasons. One of the biggest ones is that the enforcement of marijuana law is so uneven and ends up really hurting our communities of color. They tend to get much harsher sentences for the same minor crimes than their white counterparts would. And that turns into an ongoing loop of disenfranchisement and imprisonment. The other reason is because we know that the public health negatives of marijuana are, if anything, less than the public health impacts of alcohol. So there's no good reason that we should be expending our law enforcement resources and our criminal justice resources for this. But then when we go to medical, it starts to tug at my heartstrings even more because it is so hard to access that. Oh. Didn't see the wave.
I do support medical marijuana. I've been to lots of conferences and talked to medical directors from Colorado and other states that have legalized recreational marijuana, and they're seeing tremendous issues in their states with marijuana use. And I don't think just because alcohol is bad that now we should go ahead and legalize marijuana for recreational use at this time. So compassionate care, absolutely 100%. I know it works. I think it's a good thing. I definitely will work for that. I think it needs to be highly regulated. I don't think it needs to go everywhere. But people who really need it really need to have it. And and I'm all 100% for that. Recreational is gonna be a while. I think that we need to figure out a way to figure out how people are driving under the influence of marijuana. So if there's a traffic stop, policemen can't do any field sobriety type test to figure out if you're.
The next one, Ken, starts with you. Will you support funding from the state for women's health care?
Is that tell me about that. I'm an EMS guy, so I absolutely support everybody's health care. I have a feeling what this question is really asking is, do I support Planned Parenthood? And I do not support taxpayer dollars going towards abortions. But absolutely, I support women's health 1,000,000%. I mean, that's what I do for a living. I take care of it. But I don't think taxpayer dollars should be paying for abortions this time.
Erin?
I absolutely support the state spending money on women's health care. And first I want to get out of the way that Texas does not spend any money on abortion care right now, and there are not any proposals put forward for the state of Texas to spend any tax money on abortion care. What is in question is whether or not we will fund routine women's health care and screenings at organizations that sometimes recommend folks to practitioners who offer abortion care. That's the question. I think Planned Parenthood is a wonderful organization. I am proud to have their endorsement. After I graduated college, Planned Parenthood, and was working for a nonprofit making less than $20,000 a year, Planned Parenthood was where I could afford to go for my routine checkups. And I'm so grateful they provide that service to folks, as well as providing information about how to prevent STDs and how to prevent pregnancy. I mean, it's in the name. Let's plan our becoming a parent. I also support us expanding the time that women are covered after birth under Medicaid. Right now, they're only covered 6 weeks. I would like them to be covered up to 6 months.
Time's up. Erin, would you take this next one first? And this is one of 3 that sort of go together, but I think we'll take them separately because they're just slightly different, and it's an important topic. What are your ideas for decreasing gun violence in Texas?
Thank you. Well, we touched on one earlier, which is this idea of safe storage. And safe storage helps in 2 ways. 3 ways. One is it prevents weapons from being stolen and then used by folks who are clearly criminal. They stole a weapon. Second of all, it helps prevent accidents. Things like the situation I described where my little brother came out carrying a pistol. I mean, we are so lucky, my family and everyone at that party, that situation didn't end in tragedy. Third is it also reduces the rate of suicide to have weapons properly stored. Teen boys, when they choose to attempt to take their own lives, statistically go for a parent's firearm. And one of the reasons this is a huge issue is because suicide attempts by firearm are usually completed. Suicide attempts by other methods usually aren't successful, and most people who attempt suicide don't reattempt. So this is a huge factor in the gun violence conversation, is people attempting to take their own lives.
Ken?
I'll oppose the open carry law. I think that's a scary law. Being in EMS, I've seen many gun accidents, many gun violence, and so I'm very concerned about this. I think that open carry is a terrible opportunity for us in the state of Texas. I agree that guns should be locked up when they're at home. I think that the main thing we need to do is teach our children gun safety. I've taught my children since the day they could talk that if anybody brought a gun out, they needed to leave the house no matter what, no questions asked, don't touch any guns. I've been on too many accidents where boys, being boys, have had tragic outcomes in that. So it's really clear in my mind and fresh, something that we definitely need to work towards taking care of.
Can, just follow along then with this. What can you do as our representative to keep children safe in school?
Being on the Wimberley School District School Board, we in our area are the ones who brought about the program that Governor Abbott came up and said this is a roadmap for school safety. I was on that board originally. I worked with that program. I brought it to our school. I think that we need to, number one, make sure that we have good mental health people in our school. I mean, this is where we're lacking in the state of Texas. Mental health is a huge issue, not just in our schools, but in our communities. I mean, this is where a lot of our gun violence comes from. And I think that we need to start funding much more mental health people in our public schools. I think we need to make sure that, you know, I mean, we're all taking proactive steps now because of the gun violence in schools.
Erin?
I think we need to give our school districts the funding so that they can make the adjustments they need to. And I trust our individual school districts to make the decisions that make the most sense for them. Whether that's, you know, reducing to single point of entry, investing in school resource officers, whatever approach that they feel meets their community, because each of these communities is different. But we have to make sure we fund it. We've got to give the districts the resources to do it and also to invest in mental health care. That's a place where my opponent and I agree. But we also have to address the question of how are people getting a hold of these weapons that they're coming into schools with. And safe storage, again, is one option there that should help. But another option is looking at red flag laws. And what red flag laws do is they allow someone to say, I believe this person poses a danger to themselves or someone else, and to go in front of a judge and tell the judge that. And then the judge has the authority to ask law enforcement to remove all those weapons. And that's something that we can use in situations where someone's in crisis.
Erin, follow up on that. Someone has asked very specifically, do you support arming teachers? And do you support banning assault weapons and their ammunition?
Regarding arming teachers, we already have a school marshal program in Texas where teachers with school board approval can get certified to carry a weapon in the classroom. The only districts that have chosen to use this at this time are very rural districts where response times from emergency services are, you know, over half an hour away. And to me, that's an appropriate program. I do not support arming teachers without the oversight of the school board. I think the school board, again, should have jurisdiction over that, hands down. And shoot, I think the money to arm a whole bunch of teachers could be way better spent on general educational resources to make sure our schools are functioning. The second question, assault weapons. That's gonna be a hard fight in Texas. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think it's where we start. I do think we could look at banning high-capacity magazines. A 30-capacity magazine, there's no reason anyone needs that for regular recreational use.
Ken?
I'm going to ask you to read it one more time.
Sure. Do you support arming teachers? And do you support banning assault weapons and their ammunition?
Arming teachers is going to be a very expensive thing. We've talked to some districts who've done it, and they have, not every teacher has a gun, and not every teacher knows who has a gun. And in order to make that safe, they've had to come in and put gun safes in every classroom, and so that way no teacher knows who has a gun in the school. So it can be very expensive. I think it's certainly a local control issue. I think that it may not be the worst thing in the world, although, you know, we're just piling more and more and more things on our teachers. It makes me very nervous that teachers now have to become police officers as well as parents and teachers and healthcare professionals and counselors and you know, it's just another thing we're gonna stab on top of a teacher. I'm very nervous about that. It would have to be extremely,
This one, Ken, goes to another sort of hot button issue, and it's asking two different ways. I'll just read them both, since
Okay.
it's the same topic. Will you support a bill to give transgender children access to the bathroom of their choice? The other way it's asked is, if elected and if a bathroom bill is introduced, will you support it? Why or why not?
at this point, I'll just tell you that I'm 59 years old. When I was a kid, there were transgender type children in my school. So this is not a new topic. This is not something that we just started talking about 4 years ago, 3 years ago. I think local districts have done a marvelous job of taking care of these children. And I am 100% for local control. I know in the Wimberley district, we deal with this, and we deal with it on a local level, and we're very compassionate, and we're very fair about it. I think that to waste another full session of talking about a bathroom bill is going to be a big waste of your time, when we really need to talk about retired teachers and education and roads and water and infrastructure and all of that. Local districts have been taking care of these issues for a long time.
Erin?
I agree with my opponent that local school districts making decisions on a case-by-case basis is the right approach, which is why I was so disappointed to see the bathroom bill brought this past session. And its purpose was to take that flexibility away from school districts. That bill was brought by anti-LGBTQ folks who wanted to attack that community and, quite frankly, scapegoated them for sexual assault, which really infuriated me as a sexual assault advocate. You know, I've never had anyone be untoward to me in a bathroom at all, least of all a transgender person. So I really hope a bathroom bill doesn't come to the floor again. I presume it will. If it does, I will fight against it as hard as I can. And I expect we'll defeat it again by partnering with local activists. That said, I also do support a comprehensive anti-discrimination piece of legislation for the state of Texas, because LGBTQ folks are discriminated in so many different ways.
Thank you. Have you received any endorsements, Erin, and if so, from whom?
Where do we start with this one? I know we both are like going, which one's first right now? I'm really proud to have the endorsement of the Texas State Teachers Association because of my commitment to fighting for public education, our educators, and our children. I am also honored to have the support of the Texas State Employees Union because of my commitment to make sure their agencies are reasonably well funded and they're not squeezed and asked to do the jobs of 3 people. I also have the support of Wimberley Indivisible, a nonpartisan group. I have the support of Congressman Lloyd Doggett and the entire Austin delegation, Democratic Austin delegation in the Texas House of Representatives right now. I have the endorsement of every elected Democrat in Hays County, I would say, and in Blanco County, but y'all don't have any. I also have the endorsement of Clean Water Action Texas because of my commitment to fight for the environment and our water. Who else? That's a lot. Texas Freedom Network because of my commitment to fight for civil liberties. The Texas AFL-CIO.
Ken?
The endorsement that I'm most proud of is from Jason Isaac and Patrick Rose together. I have a dual endorsement, and that's what I'm most proud of because I've worked with those guys for a long time. They know who I am. They know what my heart is, and they know that I really, truly have this district at the core of my heart. 30 years I've put in time here. And they know that, they see that. They know that I can get things done. So I'm very proud of that. I have the endorsement of several school professional teachers
with so much agreement between you, this questioner would like to have you share your vision for HD 45. Ken should go first.
Okay. My vision for HD 45 is we're the fastest growing area around. You guys are getting ready to get hit. 281's getting ready to explode. You can see that already with the growth of the sewer plant that we're dealing with here. We know that we're getting ready to have people move here. They're already moving here. It's just not going to slow down. The I-35 corridor is already just bursting at the seams. My vision for this growth is coming. We're not going to be able to stop it, but we need to plan for it. We need to be very proactive. We need to work hard, make sure that we have the infrastructure so that we are not like Austin at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. It's a shame I can't even get to a hospital. I have to put somebody on a $20,000 helicopter to get them to Austin if I need to get them there, because there's just no other way to get them there. So my vision is that we plan well, that we make sure.
Erin?
Yeah, I can't quite say I have a single vision for all of House District 45 because we have these still in its own way. And that's really my vision, is that those communities are supported in continuing to be who they are and grow in a way that suits them. And to do that, it's all about local control and making sure our city has the authority, both inside city limits and in the extraterritorial jurisdiction, and that the county has the authority to grow in a way that's responsible. I mean, my opponent's absolutely right. This area is growing so fast. And I know Blanco County can see the future every time we drive up 290 into Austin. I want y'all to get to keep your local character and keep the quality of life you've enjoyed. My values are healthy communities, inclusivity, and common sense government. And I believe those are values that most Texans share with me, the vast majority of Texans. So I'm going to fight to make sure those are on the ground here.
Thank you. That's the last question. It's been turned in. You guys are wonderful. And we'll end up with a 1-minute summary from each candidate. And I think it's Ken's turn.
Okay. Well, I'd just like to say again, thank you guys very much. Thank you guys for putting this on. I'll just tell you guys that absolutely, I've said it several times, my heart and soul has been right here in this district for the last 33 years. Prior to that, I was in the Air Force. I was a public servant in the Air Force. I have done everything in my power to move this district forward, to make sure that we have safe schools. I have been on the school board 10 years, to make sure that we have good health care. I've run Wimberley EMS since 2004. I've been heavily involved in a lot of the county. 1115 Medicare waiver was part of the deal that we worked on to bring good public health into this district. So I would appreciate your vote. I'm running for State District 45, and I thank you very much for coming tonight.
Texas is facing hard issues right now. As we discussed tonight, the highest uninsured rate in the country, starving local schools, some of the highest property taxes in the country, and our social services system has just been sliced and diced until it's almost non-existent. I'm ready to go to the legislature and fight for each and every Texan on those issues. I'm not here to keep doing it the way it's always been done. I'm here for change. I'm here to take action. And that's a tremendous opportunity we have this year in Texas. We're looking at having the highest voter turnout in a midterm year in our history. And that's because folks care and because folks are believing in the democratic process again. So I stepped up to run because I believe in a better Texas. And I have the experience, the knowledge to make that happen.
So I'm ready to fight for each and every one of y'all.
Let me thank you again on behalf of the League of Women Voters Hill Country, and we've got 10 more minutes before they turn us out of the library, so maybe just visit with the candidates, ask some more questions.
Thank you.